this case, people. Looking at these environments then, we have different environments, different classroom environments here. And technology, if you drop technology into these environments, whatever technology, it means and it affords different things. In some of these environments, it will be very useful. In some of them, it will be pointless. Why not? So for instance, you have this classroom which might be familiar to you, you know, students sitting in rows, reading their book, and the teacher in the back here, supervising, waiting for them to finish, etc. You drop technology in there and it'll afford them one thing, maybe access to more resources, maybe easier management, who knows. You take a look at this picture, 40-some, maybe 60 students, no desks, everybody crammed in the classroom. Most likely, different levels in that same space, right? You know, you teach first to fourth grade all in the same room, etc. This might be a context that certainly in Guatemala I know it exists. There are places where you have this kind of environment and this kind of circumstances. What technology you drop in there, you drop technology, and I'm speaking technology as a general term, but we need to be a little bit more specific. But you drop some piece of technology in there and it'll afford them something different than in the first room, right? The third room over here, which is you got desks, you got no students, you got it. But technology affords something different in this environment. And then you have this classroom. It's very fancy. You got your projection already, and students with computers and everything. Technology affords them something different. Introduce something new in there, and it'll have a completely different impact. So the way we see technology and what it allows us to do depends on the environment, on who we are, on what we want to achieve. Same as the worm, same as the butterfly, same as the ant, same as the shaman. We all have different needs, we all have different abilities already with us, and that affects the relationship with the object that we're interacting with, in this case technology. Second concept, I don't know, let me stop here and find out if the concept of affordance is covered enough. Do you have any questions about affordance? Is the concept clear? Okay. Well, we'll come back to it, and anyway, we'll keep talking about it. So the second concept I want to talk about is transparency. I speak of transparency. Maybe it's not the best word, but it's the word that I think illustrates the best what I'm trying to convey. Take a look at this. You got a lot of technology. You got Wikipedia, you got the World Wide Web, a computer, you got Google, a projector, Web 2.0, an interactive whiteboard. All of this, you know, the idea of transparency is all of this technology is support for your classroom, right? I think that we all agree in that regard. This is not the classroom. This is what we might be able to use in our classroom. And if we have it like this, it's not very useful. Transparency means that the technology should not distract, the technology should not cover, the technology should not substitute the teaching, learning experience, right? So you have a teacher, students, that is the essence of the interaction, the teaching and learning interaction. And you got technology on top to support you, but it shouldn't be so prevalent that you lose sight of the classroom, of the interaction, right? If whenever technology becomes an obstacle for the teaching, we have to rethink. We might not be using it correctly. Now, the idea of transparency, though, is dependent. It's a very relative. It's dependent on the amount of experience that you have with technology, with a particular technology. Let's say email. You know, how experienced are you in using email? And how well email is designed to accommodate you. Okay? When these two things meet, then you have a viable solution that you can use in the classroom. But for instance, let's say I'm a person who doesn't use email a lot. You know, I don't have a lot of experience, I've never used it. Even though email might be great, might be really easy to use, very well designed, it's not a viable solution. We can't really use it. We also have material that the design itself is awful, you know. Moodle. We've talked about Moodle. Moodle is great, don't get me wrong, but the design of Moodle is still for the IT professional. I mean, setting up a Moodle site, having to deal with PHP, with a database connection, and all of that, I mean, it requires a lot of experience. And if you have that experience, then Moodle is a viable solution. You will, you know, because it will be transparent, but that's a personal relation. It will be transparent because my experience makes it transparent, right? I've used it before, I know how to set it up, I know how to guide my students through it. So my experience makes the solution viable. When I talk about design, we're talking about two things. We're talking about design in terms of user interface, you know, how it is friendly to use, you know, whatever. But also instructional design. Is it made for teaching? In other words, there are tools that are very easy to use, but that might not be made for teaching. So you have to consider, design is not just how easy it is to use, but is it made for teaching? So, if we have experienced people, and let me pull out something here. Let's say most of us are here. Because this is the average level of experience. Whatever that is, I'm not really sure what the average level of experience is. But most of us are here. So we need to look for tools that are designed well enough, not only usability, but also instructional design, that fit that average, right? We have another choice. We can look at tools that might not be designed yet, you know, might not be well designed. Then we have to raise or adjust our level of experience. And that's done through training, right? So we have to move that, all of our teachers have to move forward in that direction. And then we have, again, a viable solution. So it's either we catch up to the design, or we wait for the design to catch up to us. I mean, the people in designing tools, they're looking for that. They're looking to meet that average, right? Because they want to sell, they want you to use it, etc. We can raise to meet them. And actually, in reality, I suspect that it is somewhere in the middle. It is somewhere in the middle in that we need to come forward in our training, and they need to come, you know, forward in their design. And we need to meet somewhere in the middle to find those solutions that work. An example, a very quick example about how design is becoming more and more transparent. And this is why I guess we have to be optimistic. Video camera, this is a VHS video camera. I never even saw them. I think, you know, I didn't use one probably from the 70s, or maybe I just didn't have the money to use one, to have one. A few years later, though, you got something smaller, something portable, you can carry it around. Digital 8, it still used tape, but the tape was a little bit cheaper, you know, easier to manage, whatever. You got these digital DV cameras. They still use tape, but it's digital video. So